Pope Francis follows in his master's footsteps. By living a Christ-like gospel-centric life, the Vicar of Christ continues to enlighten those who encounter him. Karl Mascarenhas Jr. and his wife Bianca were blessed to meet Pope Francis and will now share with us their life-changing experience.
Today, some say marriage is out of fashion, not worth making a forever life-long commitment because you do not know what tomorrow brings. Therefore, I am asking you to be revolutionaries, to swim against the tide, to rebel against the culture that sees everything as temporary, that believes you are incapable of true love. This is a message from Papa Francesco or Pope Francis to married couples. Armed with this message, we embarked on our honeymoon to Rome to experience a lifetime opportunity of a one-on-one meeting with our Pope. Despite being in office for a mere 10 months, Pope Francis had already created a storm with his simplicity and honesty. The general audience commenced at 11 a.m. the Wednesday we visited. Pope Francis spent 20 to 30 minutes weaving his way through the thousands waiting for his blessings. The audience itself lasted for more than an hour. After the audience, Pope Francis went to a section filled with handicapped and senior citizens where he spoke to them and blessed them. Then came our turn. All the married couples were asked to line up in front of Saint Peter's Basilica. We were number 9 or 10. We could make out that after 2.5 hours of non-stop action, Pope Francis was tired. Nonetheless, he spent a full 2 minutes with us. We told him our names. He listened patiently. We requested him to visit Bombay. He listened patiently. We bowed our heads and asked for a blessing, and he obliged. As we looked up after the blessing, we saw our Pope giving us the warmest and brightest of smiles. And then, before moving on to greet the next married couple, he made the same request he asked on the night he was elected. Pray for me. We walked back to our hotel room thinking of one and only one thing. The entire 2 minutes he spent with us, not once did he look away from us. He maintained eye contact the entire time. That for us showed one thing: love. During our time in Rome, we learned a lot about the Pope and his early days in the papacy. A story about him and one of the Swiss guards who was manning the door of the papal residence. Now, ever so wary about the Pope's wanderings in the Basilica and St. Peter's Square, the Swiss guards were always at attention. One day, the Pope walked out of the residence and seeing the Swiss guard standing there, he went to the kitchen, made a sandwich, and brought it out for the guard to eat. He insisted that the guard sit down while finishing the sandwich, while he himself stood by the entrance. Another story we heard was about his shoes. Pope Francis chose not to wear the red shoes made famous by Pope Benedict XVI. Instead, imagine the shock on his aides' faces when he handed them a pair of worn-out black used shoes for mending. My wife and I compare this to the life of Jesus. All the parables we hear show Jesus spending time with his people, of Jesus giving people his undivided attention. And we know that all of this was possible because of the love that Jesus had for his people. And we too felt that love, the love of Jesus through Pope Francis. In In the night, when we sit down for our prayers, we remember the request from Pope Francis, "Pray for me." We cannot refuse. Those 2 minutes changed us in ways indescribable. In one line, do things simply and out of love. There is no way we can go wrong.
Another couple blessed to meet Pope Francis in person are Jude and Cassandra Rodriguez. Jude will now share with us these defining moments in his life.
Pope Francis was elected the Pope just about a couple of months before my wife Cassandra and I decided to get married. And when we initially saw him on television, the entire joy, the initial thing right from him asking for the faithful in Rome, to pray for us, to pray for him. And that got us thinking. I said, yes, he is definitely the Pope, the people's Pope. And we thought, why not, if we have a chance, let us go and meet and start our very life with his blessings. And we did just that. Carl, I know him, and he just went a month before I went to Rome. And on the night or the day when we were in Rome, in the Vatican City, we were not too sure where the audience were going to be held. Usually the audience in winter, because it's very cold, is in the close confines of the Pope Paul VI Hall. However, I was told that Pope Francis does not like that only limited number of people can visit him. So he decided to have the audience right out in the boulevard, right in the center of St. Peter's Square. And so we were glad because we knew that a huge number of people were going to be there to witness his Wednesday audience. And when we went and when we started the next day early morning, we were for a little bit of shock because it was raining cats and dogs, just like Mumbai weather. It was pouring, it was pouring, it was pouring, it was dark. If you see the pictures, you can't really see how dark it was, but it was raining heavily. And out comes out the Pope and his Pope-mobile, and what happens? Everyone is in joy, it's erupted, there's so much noise, it's deafening, it's so difficult to understand that, experience it. And we were so glad to see the way he went out with the people. He went out slowly in the Pope-mobile, and everyone were trying to touch him. He was waving out, he was holding, embracing people, and slowly and steadily he went around until it was time to have his entire audience. Yes, his audience was supposed to start about 10:30, 11, but yes, he started a bit early on that day. He came at about 10, and he was there just meeting with the people, spending a good half an hour, 45 minutes with them before he actually went up and he met and he started his audience. When he did start his audience, it was a good couple of hours, that he had. And we do know that the Pope is 77 years old and he has one lung less. So he's not always in the best of health. But when you look at him, you don't really get that. You can see him in completely in a strong amount of power. Okay, he's completely enthusiastic. You wouldn't think that he's frail in health. So he did the entire thing, and then he slowly came up and started visiting and meeting the various people out there. Just like Carl just said, we were also told to stand in line. So anxious were we, and we were so scared to about that entire moment, we chose the same spot. We decided to stand last. But what happens is something extraordinary. Just like we see in Matthew 20:16, it said, so the last will be first and the first will be last. Pope Francis has done that many times. He does something different. And we were stood in line and I was told, you need to go up, go to the Pope, introduce yourself and then introduce your wife. But the Pope does something different. He comes from the other side and he goes and wishes my wife. And then he talks to her, and then he talks to me. And we were surprised. Here we are, supposed to be last, and here we are first. And in one particular way, I would never understand this phrase of, where does it mean that I can be, first will be last, and last will be first. And here, in a simple gesture and act, without saying a word, I understood it from Pope Francis itself. He came up, and he actually spoke in fluent English. Another surprise, because we were told he doesn't speak English. He only speaks Spanish, Portuguese, and a few other European languages. So I tried to memorize a few Spanish phrases, and there I was, he's talking to me in English. And I'm like, okay, now I need to reply back to him in English. So I did speak to him. He asked us where we were. We told him we are from Bombay. He was very happy that we came all the way from Bombay. He then proceeded, he blessed us, and then he did the same customary thing which he did even on the night he got elected. The same thing he told Carl. He said, please pray for me. And I told him, though I couldn't really remember at the end of the entire session, I told him, Pope, you are always in our prayers. We are so glad to have you. And though I can't really remember the entire thing, he smiled and then he burst out a little bit of a laughter. And then he thanked us and then he moved away to the next couple. And then at that moment I realized, Pope Francis, like we even heard in the introduction, it's a life all about, through our actions. Less from our words, but more from our actions. And that particular moment and our experience and encounter with Pope Francis made us also feel that yes, our lives have to be more from actions and less of words.